I snuck in. I thought I was sneaking in and that it would all be full, and it's not.
No, we're just getting started.
Cool.
I was a little late getting home from work today, so.
Time zone doesn't help. My workshop on the weekends, I have one person who comes in from Qatar or the UAE, and I always have to try and remember how far forward they are so that, you know, they don't miss it.
Yes, time zones suck.
I've gotten into the habit of including a time zone converter in my announcements.
I keep one as I keep one up on as one of my bookmarks.
But by doing that, I can say it starts at XYZ Eastern Standard Time, parentheses, New York, because what that does is the time date thing says put in a city.
Mhm.
And it says, you know, event starts at blah, blah, blah time in New York, you know, and it'll tell you immediately what your local time is. So, but I had to learn that after, you know, several missteps.
We will have words later.
And
How's
although
everyone
it
doing
has,
today?
I mean, it's come in handy. I had for my time, it was 6 a.m. But my Australian client, it was 8 p.m. And that was really kind of useful that it was still like actually human hours to have a direct conversation with one of my clients.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I've always worked with companies that are oil and gas related, and there's always a client, a vendor, or the corporate office that's across the pond. So, so you never know. So it's always good to have that handy.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. So I finished with the Australian client. I now have a Scottish client. So just picked one up. Next one after this one is Arkansas. That's, you know, down the road a piece. Comparatively speaking, you know.
Yeah. It's interesting when you're trying to do author interviews for the podcast, because I've interviewed people that are in the UK, Russia, Australia, New Zealand. So trying to find the time zones and match them and find how many hours difference it is. It's like, oh, wow. You know, because I think the one lady to do it, I had to literally get up and like at 5 o'clock in the morning, just to get everything organized so that we could do a 30-minute interview.
I actually ran a podcast 10 years ago, doing author interviews, and stuff like that. So yeah, I've had the UK interview, the Germany was the big one, you know, at the time, but it's a challenge, but I liked it. The journalist inside me was very happy.
I once had to coordinate a project with players in Perth, Australia, Dubai, the East Coast of the United States, Houston, and England.
What time did you find?
Around the world. Around the world.
I know. What time did you find, though, that was reasonable, or was somebody up unreasonably late or early?
We had a few of those, but mostly I just had duplicate meetings where I captured them in groups.
Oh,
relayed all the
okay.
information.
Yeah.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
Although I gotta say, the organicness of a conversation. It's like, I mean, I taught English in a high school and in middle school. And you could have a lecture, first period, same course, same class, same discussion, but different things come out with different groups of people. And you think, well, this thing that came out with fifth period, I now need to remember to mention to first period tomorrow because they'll find it really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
I
have the same
believe
thing
that
with
too.
those meetings, you know?
We just had to make sure that we took copious notes and there was a lot of communication, ahead of the next meeting and then back to the previous meeting. A lot of
Yeah.
communication, a lot of notes. It was wild.
It's a ton of fun when you're trying to do it. It is. It's a little stressful, but it's actually really amazing and a lot of fun.
All right. So
I know
tonight's topic.
Yes, I know we've got some more people coming in and stuff, but I'm just going to jump in because I know everyone has a busy schedule, and I certainly don't want to be monopolizing your entire evenings. I do enough of that every Wednesday, anyways. So this week we're going to talk a little bit about refilling your emotional and creative bucket, learning how to be selfish, take some time for yourself, how to break away from, the writing, from promotion, from editing, all of those things to create a healthy mind, healthy body when it comes to your writing habits, and ultimately keep the fun in writing in the entire process. So I took a few years ago, I took a course, a fiction writers workshop, and it was amazing because one of the workbooks that they presented was all about how to disconnect and to kind of people watch and these sorts of things, and I still do it. I find that I usually take one day out of every week. I'll take and disconnect from everything and really focus on me, whether it's going for a drive with the family, whether it's putting crochet videos on repeat on YouTube and crocheting up a storm, reading, whatever it is. And so I know as an author, I am working towards writing full time, and ultimately that's, at the end of the day, that's the job that I want. To be able to get up in the morning, sit down at the computer, bang out half a chapter in my PJs before I have to, go check the mail or whatever. And so I had a long talk with a PR lady, and I talked at length with a couple of the other ladies in my critique group. Carolyn, of course, is one of those, and I've really kind of struggled with kind of finding that balance at this point, because before I did Inkers Con, I was really struggling with the idea of, where do I want to go? What is my end game? And really trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career. And so once I started that process, I dived into the deep end. It was like, cement blocks on the feet and away I go kind of idea. And I typically don't look up when I'm doing something like that. So it's been a real struggle for me to stop and say, no, I need to take some time for myself. So I came up with, I've kind of been looking online and trying to figure out, what are some healthy ways that I can do that disconnect without feeling like I'm losing ground on my goals. And one of the things that I have really noticed is, and is just a 30-minute break a day. Just, you step away from the computer, maybe you go for a walk, music, whatever it is, but you take that 30 minutes and you walk away. And I have found that to be incredibly beneficial, because I can say, I can clear my mind, I can focus on something else. And it really does give me a little bit more balance. Now, it's a work in progress, of course. I'm still a workaholic. I'm still, I still pull the long hours. I'm still I work today. I apologize to everyone. I was a little bit late getting home from the day job, so I was rush home, have supper, and then jump on the computer. And my day probably won't end until probably 10:30, 11 o'clock tonight, because I will literally be burning the midnight oil. So finding that happy medium, finding the time to really focus on myself and being selfish is incredibly important, because you want to maintain a healthy mind, healthy body. So some of the some of the things that are really important to you, maybe not around your writing, is something to focus on as well. I love that idea, Laura, of setting a schedule where you're scheduling your breaks for snacks, TV, walks, etc. I really, really love that idea. It's a struggle sometimes because I'm not much because I get into it and I don't pay attention. So I have found, by setting an alarm on my phone and setting it for, this long, it gives me a chance to actually dive into that mindset. Okay, when that alarm goes off, I can step away. I can break away. So I think that's really important. So when we're talking about healthy minds, when it comes to writing, we need to be on the ball with the creativity, because that is our job. That is our passion. That is the one thing that is really important for our goals, because we don't want to get stagnant. We don't want to get lazy in our writing. We want to be able to write fast, write accurate, and really be able to put together a really good book. So taking that break for the first step is huge. And I, like I said, I'm a work in progress. I still struggle with this. I probably always will, because my brain is just geared to, okay, this is what I'm doing. I need to focus. I'm laser focused kind of idea. So taking breaks is the first one, but there's more to it than that. Who here does sprints with writing prompts or anything along those lines? Who here does like the microfiction stories, those sorts of things? Raise your hand. I know that there's a few people that, no, there's a couple of us. Yes, Carol. I love them, because it gives my brain a chance to focus on something else. I'm still writing, but I'm focusing on putting together something that is completely different than what I'm working on. So I'm working on contemporary romantic suspense, and I'm suddenly there's a prompt that comes up in one of the groups that says, for write a 500-word story on this picture or whatever. I have to kind of put the brakes on this and focus on this, and it kind of gives me that divide, which is huge, because again, I'm not wired that way, so it is a struggle. I'm still learning how to do that, but yes, Flash Fiction Friday, used to Saturdays are awesome. I love doing them. But there's more to it than that. You also want to engage your mind in other things. Reading is incredibly important. I know that there has been some talk in some of the author groups about authors who don't read. They say that they don't need to. It doesn't impact their ability to tell a really good story. Reading isn't a reflection on your writing style and your writing voice, in my opinion. This is my opinion. I'm going to state that up front, because I don't want anybody angry at me. Reading is a way for you to turn off the brain and just focus on relaxing and just escaping from the pressures that you're putting on yourself to do your writing, to meet those deadlines, to get those edits in, to do your revisions, knowing what you need to get done on your work. If you're sitting there and you spend half an hour reading every day, you're going to find that you're relaxing a whole lot more. And you're going to find that you're going to get in touch with that creativity and refill that creative bucket as well. And I use the term bucket often with an emotional bucket or a creative bucket. It's a term that I've used for forever and a day. I learned it a long time ago. And I really feel that it's very, very accurate, because if you have an empty emotional or creative bucket, you're not able to engage, right? So keeping that bucket full, really allows you to dip in. So if you're dipping in and you're writing, and you're taking the time to be selfish and recharge your batteries, recharge that creativity, that well is never going to run dry, because it's constantly being replenished. Having said that, is it always an easy thing to do? No. So I would love to hear from you guys, and what you guys do to recharge, to get in touch with that creative balance that you guys have, to break away from the stress of writing your book. What do you guys do that separate, that you can do, that you can step away from your computer, your writing, whatever it is, and go do it, and come back and sit down in your chair and go, I'm pumped, I'm ready to get back at this. What's one of those things that you guys do? Let's all right, I have some hands up here. Lancy, we're going to start with you, just because that's you're closest to me on the screen here.
Okay, so one of the things that I have found that has worked for me, and I don't know how many of you are moms or grandmothers or whatever, or dads, but I have 3 grandchildren under the age of 7, and this summer, nice kitty, this summer, I have been going like 1 week a day, sometimes 2 weeks a day. I've gone and spent time with them, and they have such great imaginations, and we'll just go play together, and we'll build things with Legos, and they like to play mermaids. So we'll pretend we're mermaids and we're going to the cafe, and they have to take my order, but just doing that kind of imagination thing. And when I leave, I feel completely full of life again, and not dragged down by anything, because they're so innocent and sweet, and they see the world in a new and different way. And that's really been a good thing for me. I don't know what I'm going to do now that they're going back to school.
Yeah, that's gonna be a challenge. Michael, what do you do?
Oh, I don't know that I have good answers to those questions. I'm here more to learn answers to those questions, but I was going to ask if there were like resources that you guys are familiar with on how to kind of stabilize that emotional roller coaster that is the creative experience, right? Because what I find happens is I get knocked down by it'll come out of left field, some small, seemingly insignificant comment, or I'll read somebody else's story and it'll have something that I'm like, oh wow, I don't know how to do that, and then it'll make me feel very insecure and very inadequate, and then that kind of derails me, right? And I'm looking for like those strategies that help maintain your focus on what you need to get done, and keep you motivated, because when it does knock me down, it can if I'm dealing with other emotional issues related to just life, it can knock me down for like days. So that's something that as I'm trying to improve and get more productive, you can't sacrifice days of time just for minor emotional hiccups, right? You need to find a way to be better at dealing with that, and that's what I'm dealing with. That's what I'm working on, is trying to find ways to do that. So yeah, so that's my question, I guess, is what kind of resources are there, and that's specifically what I'm hoping to get out of it. So if there's anybody that has answers to those, I'd love to hear them.
I do have a book, but while I'm grabbing that, because it's over on my bookshelf, which is over there, Destiny, if you want to pitch in and give and tell us, what you're thinking, what your thoughts are, what you do, I'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or evening, wherever you are. I just have a small comment for Michael, and that would be kind of really for me, what I do is that I kind of have a little small exercise about what's your why? Like, why are you writing in the first place? Is it for yourself? Is it maybe you're telling a story that no one else can tell? Like, what is your reason for doing this? And that really most times picks me back up, because I know I'll see someone who's maybe further along than me. Their writing's just so beautiful. I'm like, oh man, I'm not quite there. And I read what I've written yesterday. I'm like, gosh, this is pretty much trash right now. But for me, I always think about, okay, why am I writing? I'm writing I want to tell a story that no one knows about. I want to write because of my own self, to prove that I am a good writer, that I can write, and I can do this impossible thing of writing a book that seems to be impossible for everybody else. And I also want to write because I want to leave my own type of legacy through words. And those are some of my small reasons. And so I would just suggest finding your reasons and just always kind of pull them back up whenever you get that discouragement, so you lose days and days and weeks of what you said earlier. Also, to the main event question, that what I do to build my creative well, I feel like I do a lot of things. But the main ones that I do is, for me, I like to read comics. So I'll read all types of different types of comics around and see what I like and what I don't like. I do a lot of, when I read stories, I always think of how it could improve, and that fills my well. Or if I see certain movies that are like horrible 80s movies, I'm like, oh my God, it's trash, but I love to watch it. And so I'll think of how to fix the movie, or why is it a good movie, even though it's like really cheesy. Like, why is it good? And that kind of fills me up. And really the lot that I used to do prompts are iffy for me. So just due to the fact that I do a lot of recreating, because a lot of my stories are recreations based off certain source material. Like, I'll say, I think of a story that's the source material is Twilight, because I just didn't like Twilight. But if I told you the story, it would sound nothing like Twilight. Because it's my own story. I fixed what I think was broken and made it my own story. So that's what I do a lot of for different, maybe books. I do it more so for movies that I think I enjoy. And that's kind of how I keep my creative well. And since I work in the school all day, there's always drama and funny middle school things going on. So that gives me stuff for days.
Okay, that's awesome. Bobby, how about you?
Yes. Well, I have a critique group that I'm part of, that I am the lead on, for that happens every Saturday morning. And we put our stuff out on Wednesday so everybody can get an opportunity to read it. In fact, I'm running it through Pro Writing Aid right now, trying to catch those, little grammar things that I don't want my other people to say, oh, the grammar's not right. We're not at that stage, folks. So I'll give you as clean as I can. But by Saturday morning, I've gotten notifications that I've had some people making comments, and then on Saturday I read it, and then each person has 3 minutes to respond with their top 3 comments. And this is specifically for Michael. One of the things that I do is, when that session is over, I do not do any writing. I don't go back and look at my stuff. Saturday afternoon, after my critique meeting, I'm done for the day. I don't look at the computer. I try not to get on the computer, because then I'll be tempted to get into my writing. So I've heard them make their comments, and that gives me a day to get away from it and just go do something else and think about anything else, so that I don't focus on those critiques, and so it doesn't hit me as hard, so that Sunday, when I do go back and kind of look at it and make my own notes on what I'll change for that scene or the chapter, the sting is gone.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing I do is, I have a 45-minute commute one way so I've got an hour and a half of drive time. I listen to audiobooks, and that's my opportunity to I enjoy specific authors, so I have series that I'm listening to those. It also makes me it I'm more relaxed. The traffic doesn't bother me as much because I'm in the middle of a story. Sometimes I'll get home or I'll get to work and I'm like, okay, I just got to listen for 5 more minutes. This chapter will be over in 5 more minutes. And I found also that I'm a much better driver when I'm listening to my story because I'm not focused on the traffic. And so I'm not swerving in and out of traffic. So those are my two things that I do is I give it a day off and then I commute. Okay, what are you showing me, Michael?
Oh, I just want to show you guys, I'm taking notes on everything you're saying on my
Okay.
phone. So I'm not saying much, but I did want to ask you a question, Bobby. And this is going to seem like just such a silly question, but what service do you use for audiobooks? I have looked at Audible's pricing strategy and I'm just like, man, you guys are asking for a lot of money. And I don't really feel like I get that value out of that for Audible. And maybe it's just I'm being too cheap. But I was curious what you use for audiobooks.
I started listening to first books on tape and then on CDs. And I switched over to Audible almost immediately when they went to it. And because at that point I had a much longer commute, I was using 3 credits a month. And that is my Audible. Now I only have 1 taken out because I don't have as much of a commute, but that is my entertainment expense for the month. And so then whenever they have sales, I stock up on those, or if I need something specific, I'll do the buy the extra 3 credits. I went from, like I said, from cassettes to the CDs to an audio service similar to Audible, but they weren't as well. And Audible gives me so much variety. You can get books, you can get stories there that aren't out yet. Like I have several authors who it says only on Amazon, which means the audiobook is done. The print book is probably done, but it's not available for people to read.
Okay.
So
I think that's a great idea. Having something that you can kind of plug in and just disconnect. That's an awesome way to do that. My commute is 30 minutes. I don't have time to actually listen to audiobooks that way, but it's definitely worth checking out. Randy, other than stealing black trucks, what do you do to?
Okay. Sorry, I'm like having to like fix. I usually don't go on my tablet, but to answer Michael's question of how to kind of like get over like the slump, I have 2 things. I have a couple things actually. The first thing is anytime I'm writing anything, I imagine whatever draft I'm working on. If you think of a fire, you always think like the really pretty thing is the flame and everything. And then you have all the wood and the kindling at the bottom. Whatever draft you're working on, whether it be your first, second, third, it's all the ugly kindling at the bottom. And your final draft and all the prettiness is the flame. So I keep thinking it's like, oh, okay, I might be writing garbage right now, and that's fine. It's getting out of my head, which is not a good place to be in. And eventually it will turn into the pretty, pretty fire. Because I am also a potential arsonist. Let's be honest, I will probably commit arson at some point. I burnt myself a lot as a cook. So I can relate to fire a lot. So that's kind of how I think of it is, you have like the ugly base and then eventually it becomes pretty. So however you want to interpret that, that's just what I will think. And another thing that I do to kind of just refill my creative well is I get inspiration from literally anywhere, whether it be music, whether it be TV shows, and they'll have like a line and I'm like, I'll like think about it for a little bit and I'm like, ooh, I can change it and do like this. I have also gotten inspiration literally from publishing clearinghouse commercials because at my work, they played way too many country radio stations and PCH would come on a lot. But kind of just letting like anything strike and then kind of instead of trying to focus on like one project and one project only, jumping around in different projects. And one final thing that might help, if you feel like you can't write and you feel stuck, then don't. Focus, instead of what is going to happen in the story, focus on your characters, flesh them out, get into their mind and be like, oh, okay, well, what would they do? Like, not necessarily on a Sunday, but, what put them in the place that they're in? Maybe you're writing someone that has like a lot of trauma, or is your villain, kind of go into their mind instead of focusing on writing and just being like, oh, okay, this is what got them here, and kind of build them that way. So that way you're not focusing on writing it, but you're kind of building the idea of the character instead. Hopefully that makes sense, because I think I kind of rambled.
Yeah, it does. One of the things, and this is directed at Michael, is when you're writing and you're getting those negative, whether it's negative feedback or those emotional situations that you kind of throw a roadblock up for you, or a stumbling block, or pothole, or sinkhole, or whatever you want to call them. A lot of the time, when you're looking at it, I think one of the really good ways that I've kind of gotten away from that is really having a visual that says, I am my own, my own creative genius. I'm not an imposter, because a lot of the time, one of the things that I have come across personally, and is that sense of, well, I'm not selling books, so am I good? Am I good enough to continue? Should I continue with it? And so having something that I can visually see that says to me, hey, no, you're on track. You're doing great. This is just a little, a little bump in the road. You don't need to allow that imposter syndrome to kind of drag you down, is really, really important for me. That visual aspect, whether it's a poster I put on the wall, whether it's something that I have on my computer, my screen on my computer, on my phone, even just sitting down on it with a blank piece of paper and writing it out, that I find really does help. Because let's be honest, we are our own worst critics. It doesn't matter what anyone else says. At the end of the day, we are our own worst critics. And sometimes what we need to do is tell that little voice in our head that's saying, no, this is wrong. You're not doing it right here. Feeding into that negativity, we need to just tell them to shut the heck up and sit down, because nobody's paying any attention. And it's easier to say it than it is to do it. But I think, and I'm hoping that this particular roundtable will give us all some strategies on how to deal with that voice and tell it to, stick a sock in it. So, yeah, I think that's a great idea. Keeping a file of your own feedback from past projects is awesome, because it gives you that sense of self-validation. It gives you that sense of, hey, I can do that. And another way is, and now I know, Michael, you don't have a book out yet. You're working on it. Can't wait to read it. But for those of us who do have books out, going back and taking a look at a really glowing review, pop that onto your computer screen, your cell phone, print it out, stick it up on the wall with a book cover, whatever. That is also a really good way if if you're struggling with self-validation, to get that validation from an outside source who, you may not know them, but at least it gives you that sense of, hey, I did this and I got a stranger to tell me it was good. So that's always a really good idea. Sorry, Lance, I'm sorry. I wasn't ignoring you, hon. I seen your hand up there. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just put it up a minute ago. You were fine. I just wanted to tack on to what Randy was saying. I was talking to a friend of mine about writing the book and how sometimes I was a little overwhelmed and just got stuck and didn't know what to do. And he said the most amazing thing to me, and he's not a professional writer. I think he's a poet at heart. But he said to me, you just have to remember that what you're writing is just one story that happens in this world you're building. It's just one story about one person in this world. If you get stuck, just just go write a different story in that world, or think about somebody else in that world, or something else that happened, which goes right along with what Randy was saying about, working on a different piece of the story, or maybe the world. And for whatever reason, him saying that was very freeing. It like gave me permission not to worry about where I was stuck. That's all.
No, that is absolutely brilliant, because I think sometimes we need to remember we have permission to move to, to readjust our focus, whether it's a different character, whether it's a different storyline. For some of us, that could be something like, writing fan fiction, or doodling or painting or whatever. We have the permission, to go do whatever we want to do, as long as, we feel that it's going to help us. And anything that we do that we get enjoyment out of can only benefit us. So yes, Destiny.
I want to first to agree with Lancy, to believe, like, yes, I believe for that to do other things. Also for me, it is a catch-22, because I know me, to know thyself and love thyself, and I will do 5 other things, and I feel like I never complete them. And so I would just like to add on to it that, yes, move on to different things, but also, I guess, make some certain boundaries for yourself to either know, like, are you going to complete it, or is it just going to be in the wind, and be okay with that. Because I have some stories that are just in the wind, and that's okay. That's where they need to be at this time now. But there are other stories I'm like, I need to complete this for X reasons. So I just think for us being reasonable with yourself about when you change different things, understand where it's going to end and where it begins, in that type of sense. Also, to make a comment, Patricia, about if I ever do a fan fiction, which I feel that I never do a fan fiction because I will always change the world. And I'm like, nope, I'll never wait. It'll never work out for me.
I think, everyone has to find their own groove when it comes to that, what it is that they can not necessarily escape to recharge, but I think to, to find their happy balance, that happy place that they feel comfortable, and they, where they feel that they can kind of shed those worries and that strain. Little things are only temporary, little setbacks, little emotional things are only temporary. I would love to do a roundtable specifically on how to deal with the negative emotions with reviews and edits and all those things. And I'm going to do one. So if we don't get as in depth as we would all like today, have no fear, we're going to come back to this very soon. But I think we also have to understand, there's more to the whole process. We have to really be aware that not only is it an emotional, but there is also a physical part to this. We have to, having a healthy creative drive is fantastic, but if you don't have a healthy mindset and you don't have a healthy body, it does impact your ability to focus on what you're trying to do, focus on your writing, focus on your career. So I think that's another part of keeping that emotional and creative bucket full is understanding not just the emotional but the physical aspects of it as well. I don't know about anyone else, but when I'm in the zone and I am writing, my butt is in a chair, I'm sitting here, and this is, I'm doing this, right? You're there, which is not necessarily the best to do, especially if you're writing 6 days out of the week or 7 days out of the week or whatever. So finding a way to balance the physical and the emotional, and how to keep that balance is really important, I think. Now we all have bad habits. Mine is I drink way too much pop. I do. I drink way too much. If I'm not drinking pop, I'm drinking coffee. And if I'm not drinking that, I'm drinking milk. But I know I don't drink enough water. I know that. So I'm trying to overcome that. But I think that's one of those things that we maybe overlook, is the physical aspect of it. Who here, now I know we all write, but who here does a physical activity outside of, you know, getting up and walking from the computer to maybe to the car to go to work, or, you know, doing jobs like that? Couple of us? Okay, awesome, awesome. I love that. I think walking is, 1 second. Sorry, just 1 second.
Don't scold the children.
No, the dog. The door is closed, so he's gonna whine. I don't know why he doesn't like closed doors, but he never has. But yeah, so physical activity is a really good way to do that. Yeah, and you know, walking is also a really good way to do things like people observing, and really kind of getting in touch with your creative side. So that's a really good one. Bobby, you have your hand raised, and I know you're probably thinking I missed it, but I didn't. I've seen it.
That's fine. One of the things I was going to say is this week I've always written. Sorry guys, I can't talk. I've always written at night, and part of that is because that's what I was doing when I did Nano the first year in 2013. Is I would come home. My husband is extremely encouraging of my writing, so I would come home and he'd ask me, "So what do we got to write tonight?" So I had my assigned word count. He made sure dinner was ready, ate dinner, went into my office and worked. But lately I've been struggling to stay focused. So I had one of the Facebook things or whatever that I'm on said to try writing first thing in the morning. So I've gotten him to get me up an hour early. I turn on the computer, I turn on YouTube so that it plays specific subliminal writing music, and the subliminal is to encourage you to be creative. And they're set in 30-minute increments. So I do 30 minutes, then I do another one for 10. And even if it's just editing, I feel like I've got that done, and I've got it done for the day. So in the evenings, I can do some more writing. But the other thing that I added with the writing in the morning is 15 minutes of working out. I have a little exercise thing, so I get my writing and some workout done. And then, so on Wednesday nights, this is my get away from my writing and, you know, focus on the other aspects of the writing career. So these round tables are great because they may help me. They may not help me today, but they will help me down the road. Now, this one today, I'm definitely, you know, I'm like, okay, this is good. And I've had my Fitbit for a while, and during the day, I go out of the office for a little while before it gets too hot here.
Yeah. See, that's the thing where I'm at. I've talked to a couple of friends of mine. I've got a neighbor who is going to be joining me. We're going to start walking down to the lake and back. I have a lake that's like 1.5 kilometers, or I'm really terrible at figuring out converting kilometers to miles, but it's so that way it's about a 15-20 minute walk to there and then back. And we're going to slowly start building up, because both of us work in retail. We both work at the same grocery store. We both work, you know, 8 hours standing on our feet, which is really hard on your legs. It's really hard on your hips, your backs, etc. So you know, for those of us who, you know, aren't into doing aerobics and, you know, high impact training and that sort of thing, sometimes just a walk is good. You know, you don't want to be strolling too much, because when you're straight, you want to kind of get that heart rate going, because that really does, it increases the endorphins and it gives you that pumps you up a bit. So that's always a good thing. So exercise is fantastic. Diet is another one I think that is really important, and I am learning this. My husband is phenomenal with this already. He loves fruit and veggies. I like my fruit and my veggies, but I'm very specific on what I like, and I only eat it when I want to. So for me, if I want a snack while I'm sitting writing, it's usually a bag of chips, so a candy bar or something along those lines, or crackers and cheese or something like that. So I think that's something else that we need to take into consideration to really balance it out, so that we as writers are not just dealing with the emotional part of this and you know, feeling yep we, you know, we're not feeling like we're kind of because I think that's another part of it too. The days when I sit and have a healthy snack while I'm writing, like, you know, whether it's cucumbers and ranch dressing or Caesar dressing, or carrots and dressing, or, you know, celery or whatever it is, when I sit and have a healthy snack, you know, and maybe a cup of tea, I do tend to find that I'm feeling a little bit more recharged and a little bit more clear on my focus, and able to really go into that mindset of, okay, I'm writing for now. I've got this to do. I've got my promotion to do. I've got my marketing. I've got to get these graphics done, whatever it is. And I think too, that's also part of it. When you find that happy balance between your diet, your exercise, your you time, and when I say you time, I literally mean 30 minutes a day where it is, you're focused on you, you're being selfish. It's not selfish to do this. I think you absolutely have to, because it's not, you need to focus on you, because if you don't focus on your own health, no one else is going to. This is something that I have struggled with to learn, because I'm one of these that I will literally go to the ground to help people. Like, I mean, and I do, I always try to give back more than I take. Some say it's a bad habit, I don't know. But I think when you balance it out, you know, and you can kind of create that routine around that balance, it really does benefit you, so that you can focus on it. And then that way, you know, whether it's those imposter syndrome moments, whether it's that self-doubt, whether it's that little voice in the back of your mind that's saying, oh, you should just give this up and stick with your day job, they don't have bearing the same amount of weight in your sphere as they do when you are under the weather, or you're not on your game. So that's something to definitely consider. Yes, Lancy.
I was just going to say, there's some little things that I've done that kind of help, because, you know, when you get in the zone, and then sometimes you look up and you've been sitting there for hours. But originally I got my Apple Watch because I wanted to be able to walk around without having to carry my phone. This is when I was doing full-time project management work, and I was running all over the building all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't want to carry all this crap with me when I went from one place to another. But it has like a little thing on it that goes off, little vibrator. That didn't come out right. It vibrates every so often. I don't know. I think it's once an hour to make sure you get up and stand and walk around.
Mm-hmm.
And now I work at home and my office is upstairs. And so when my watch vibrates, I will find a stopping point and get up and, like, you know, go refill my water glass. I go down the stairs, and I started trying to go up and down the stairs like twice, like go down, come back up, go back down, and then go fill up my water, and then do the same thing coming back up, just to get some of that activity that I'm no longer getting when I was running all over the building up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
But little things like that, just like adding a little extra thing every time you get up. or,
Mhm.
you know, setting the alarms to make sure you do get up and do something. Those help.
They really do. A few years ago, I injured myself quite badly at work. I wound up with a perforated disc. So I had massive back spasms. I could barely move. I could barely walk. And I had gone to a kinesiologist and physio and that sort of thing. And because at the time I was restricted on what I could do, what she had suggested was, well, you're sitting lots because that's comfortable for you. Exercise doesn't have to stop. You don't have to jump up and down, and you don't have to be standing up to do exercises. So she gave me a bunch of exercises, and I will try and dig some of them out, and I will actually post them in the group because they're super easy, super fun. And literally you can do them sitting in your chair, and it's all joint work. It's all muscle work. It's, it's like, there's one, it's like where you just, when you're inhaling, instead of focusing on filling up your diaphragm, you're trying to expand your lungs. And there's a bunch of them that they're really, really good. And one of the ones that she had suggested, and especially for those of us that are sitting a lot when we're writing, is who doesn't love a massage? Everybody likes massages, right? Well, she gave me an exercise that I can do, and I can do it in my chair. I have one of these lovely office chairs, and I can do it in this chair. And basically what it is you take a tennis ball, racquetball, it's got to be a little bit firmer, and you put it against the back, and then you roll back and forth and up and down and so on and so forth. It does help. Oh my God, does it ever help? I find that I'm not suffering from back pain as much when I'm doing that. And I've noticed that I'm starting to do that. I'm starting to do a little bit more exercise with the elastics as well, because you're using your own natural body. If you've got them around your ankles, you're using your own body weight as a tension, as counterforce to your exercises. So you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to do any of those sorts of things. You can even sit there, and while you're writing, you could do these exercises as well. So I think that's a really great idea. You get stressed after a massage from another person, Michael? Okay. Hey, everyone does. Everyone does. We're not laughing at you, Michael, honestly. Okay, Michael, go ahead. Sorry.
First of all, Carolyn, that's a dirty, dirty mind you got there. So, I guess my question was,
you've got room to talk, buddy.
you must have.
I was in round tables with you, yes, at InkersCon, yes. So
it's here. I'll turn on my video. It takes one to know one, I think. So anyway, I'll turn the video back up. I don't like myself when I sit on the couch. I don't like the way I look, so I'm going to turn off the video. I'm self-conscious. So the question I had was, we've been talking a lot about exercise and stuff like that, which is really awesome. Like I said, I've been taking notes, but I did have a question about scheduling. I noticed that disruptions to my schedule really will throw me for a loop for a while. Even like, so something that just hit me recently was my daughter went back to school, but she's going to virtual academy, which means she's staying at home working from a computer, because we're in Missouri, where we're having kind of a hot spot, and we're concerned about the Delta variant. So we're like, you know what, we're going to keep her home and have her do a virtual school for this, at least for this fall. And so that change in schedule was a big disruption, because now she's got to be logged in and going to school all day. And my wife works from home, and I work obviously from home. So there's now this large chunk of our day which is dedicated to making sure Mia, my daughter, is doing schoolwork and attending and stuff. And I've really noticed that taking that time to even step away and do writing I feel guilty, because now I'm leaving that task of making sure my daughter is doing her schoolwork on to my wife's shoulders while she's also working, right? So I'm having to give myself permission to be selfish, to just go and be selfish and go right? Take that time to go do that. I'm better about that, but just, that's just an example of how, starting up school has changed our schedule and kind of shifted things around. And now I'm having to deal with an emotional thing, the guilt, to try and get back on track. So yeah, anyway, I was just curious how you guys view scheduling and schedule changes, and there are techniques that you have to make it easier transition, stuff like that.
I am gonna call on Laura because she has some really, really great ideas for scheduling. And then I'll give you my scheduling tips and tricks that I use that I find to be beneficial. Laura, would you like to address that first?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I would recommend for when you have unschedulable time, you're not sure when you're going to get the chance to do something, is to have a to-do list. And that means breaking down your writing tasks into not, I need to finish this chapter, but I need to write the next step in this character's journey. Or I need to develop the setting where this scene is going to take place. And you write down those as a to-do list so that literally whenever you have the time, you simply pick the next item on the list and work on it while you have the time. Then you move on. Oh my goodness, I've now been interrupted. I have to go back to doing this thing. You know where you left off. You know when you come back to having time again, you do know immediately where to pick up. You don't have to wait and figure out, well, where was I in the story? Well, what do I have to do next? Now, granted, that is not a pantser's approach. But in this particular situation, a pantser needs to still have a plan. And that's my biggest advice, is to have a to-do list, but not a to-do list in the sense that we think, write chapter 4, write chapter 6, write X scene where this happens, is what you want to have. You want to be as very specific as possible, because if all you have is 5 minutes, you don't need to spend that 5 minutes figuring out which character's point of view am I in. You just need the time to write.
Can you give examples of to-do list items? I think I heard you give a couple, but I would love to get like specific examples to give me like to wrap my brain around.
Okay. I'm going to read off of literally my to-do list. I have a much more organized schedule. I work from home. I don't have any children who have, things like that. But I have copy edit WWT. That's a client that I have to work on. I know I need to get a couple thousand words done a day for them. But it simply tells me that's what I need to do. And next to it, it says where I left off was page 45. So that I don't have to guess where I left off. I just jump to there and I know that I left off there. I also have, we were talking about not just writing, but how to plan marketing and how to do that sort of thing. I have a response that I need to create as an email post to my blog, and just the topic of the email post is there and the deadline of when it needs to be done. Now the deadline is several weeks away, but the deadline is there. Okay. I have a teaser audio that I need to create for my Patreon. I know that those are a minute long. So if I'm recording it, I just will save off a random minute. And then that becomes my post. But it's very specific tasks. It's not broad write the next part of the story. It's very specific. This is where I was. This is where I'm going.
You
Does that
know,
help?
that helps a lot. And more importantly, I think that what that does is because so writing is the thing that I aspire to be doing full time. But the reality is I have a lot of stuff that I have to do that's not writing that can feel overwhelming at times. So I've used lists like that in the past whenever I start to feel overwhelmed with my day job, right? To start making sure I'm not losing anything. And I think what I'm hearing, because that was a good example to help me like really understand what the list should be. And I think what I'm hearing for me specifically is create a list of all tasks broken down that you need to do, both for writing and for not writing, so that you're not feeling overwhelmed, which is helping keeping, like when your schedule shifts, it can make you feel overwhelmed because you're like, now when do I have time to sit and dedicate hours to this? You don't need hours, you need minutes. And you need to make those minutes work for you, right? So
Yeah, you need to make those minutes not what do I do next, but here's what I do next.
right. Make them productive and make it where you're not, yeah, exactly. You're not spending a lot of mental energy figuring out what you're doing. You're just spending mental energy doing the things that you've already figured out. Yeah, that's really good info. I really appreciate that. You kick ass every time you open your mouth.
Learned that I worked for 15 years as a technology support person. And every time anybody called me, it was an emergency. It was a fire. And it might not have been, but I would, I put it on my to-do list as detailed as it needed to be. And when I got to it, I didn't have any questions. I didn't need to know what I was doing. I showed up at so-and-so's room and I took care of the problem. But not having the necessity of asking the teacher again or asking the user again, what was your problem, meant that I could walk into their space, take care of their issue, and walk out again and be very, very efficient with my time. And that's where I learned this process.
I think too, it also gives you a sense of control, because now you're not struggling to figure out, the what, the when, the where, how, all of that stuff. It's literally, there's no question. You're in control. It's this is what I am going to do. It's not what am I going to do, it's I am doing this. And I think that's a huge part of it too. That is awesome, Laura. I really appreciate that. Yes, Lancy.
So my day job is as a project manager, and I worked in a PMO before, which is a project management office. So at my job, I would have 3 or 4 different really big projects going on that I'm managing at one time, right? So scheduling is a big damn deal, a BDD in my life. And one of the things I will tell you that works is, first of all, know thyself and know when you are most productive, and then block that time to do your heavy lifting. The things that require the most from your brain, do it during the time when you are most productive. I'm a morning person, so I come in and I want to get that important shit done in the morning.
Yep.
And then by 3 o'clock, my brain is mush. So I save the filing and the go and talk to somebody and the things that don't require that kind of brain work. I just save that for the afternoon. So kind of try to lump your stuff according to how you and your body and your environment work. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a great one. Destiny.
Thank you. I said, first of all, my mind's like, pew, 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 fireworks. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, this is what I need. Because my biggest thing is scheduling, trying to weave in whatever I can weave in. And that just what Laura said earlier, really dicing down your tasks, because I kind of, for me, my writing, I have like a giant like skeleton of where ideally wise where I'm going, but it's not highly specific where I know exactly where I'm going. I have more of like a discovery writer type of thing. where I'm like, oh, this happened. Look at that. Here's where I go. And then just follow that trail until I can't write anymore for the day. But that sounds really good for me to dial down on what I'm doing, because that's some of the things I do in my job, which as a case manager, I manage like maybe 20 or 30 different children and all their lives, and like then manage my own life. That's too many lives to manage. But that right there really does help me. And also what I've learned from me is that I do agree, like early mornings, like for me, I'll get up at 4 a.m. because that's early enough for me before I get ready for work to do some good writing then. And then at 4 o'clock, kind of when I get off of work, I'll do like the courses, Inker's Con, all this writing stuff I have stashed on my computer that I need to go ahead and look through it to use it to make this money work for me that I spent on all these things, and dissect it and really go ahead and map out my author business. Because my biggest goal for 2021 is to finish the main draft of my book and move on to the next draft and the next book. But thank you all so much for the information.
You're very welcome. One of the things that I have found that is incredibly beneficial. I'm a spreadsheets person. I love spreadsheets, but I was reading an article very recently, and I can't for the life of me remember where it was from, but they had talked about figuring out your scheduling, figuring out when you can focus on certain things. And I actually think it was from a webinar I took of Alessandra's, and basically what was said was you take your spreadsheet, you put you break it up so it looks like a calendar week, right? And so you have your Monday, you have your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whatever. And then what you do is you block it, you put in everything that you do from the time that you get up in the morning. So for example, if you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, from 6 till whatever, so from 6 to 6:15, let the dogs out, set the coffee up, get the coffee started, let the dogs out, bring the dogs back in, fix your coffee, get ready for work. And then, so you find out exactly where you're spending your time, how you're spending your time. And then you, as you go through it, you start to see spaces where you can manipulate it so that you have time to focus on your writing, on your promotion, on your marketing, on updating websites, doing your newsletters, whatever it is. And then what I've done is I take one day out of the week and I color code it. So I might, like this past weekend, it was Saturday. And I, that day, whole day, I had that whole block as a pale orange. So it was slow down, just chill out. And that was my disconnect day. That was my day to, go to the city, do some shopping, spend some time with the hubby and the kid, and go for a bit of a drive, and really kind of focus on things that weren't related to my writing. I took my phone, I had my Kindle with me so I could read on my phone as we're going to Yorkton and back, and really try to do that, because I have found that it's really valuable, because I'm finding that I have time, not a lot of time, but I might have half an hour in the morning where I can get onto social media and post a good morning, and today's going to be a beautiful and inspirational quote in my groups on my page, and move on. And then I'm off to work and whatever. So I'm finding that really does help. The other part of it is rewards. Rewards are incredibly important, I feel, because if you're like me, you've got so many irons in the fire, and you've got to make sure you got to keep on top of all of them, because if the fire goes out over here, well, then why look, kind of idea. So what I've done is, it's like, whether it's well, okay, I'm going to use a prime example for the chapter that I'm working on right now in the book that I'm working on. I've kind of been tweaking it and playing with it and stressing out a little bit about it. So what I did is I said to myself, okay, well, if you can get 500 words in between this time and this time, without interruption, without looking at YouTube, without, just put the music on, work on the chapter. If you can get 500 words in, you can spend 20 minutes watching YouTube videos. Okay. So I've given myself the task, I've given myself the reward. And I'm finding that when I do that, I'm actually getting more productive because my goal is 500 words, but you know, I'm looking, you know, I'm doing whatever, and then my alarm will go off and I'll be going, oh, well, wait. And it's like, no, okay, I need to give myself that reward now. So I'm finding that if I set myself those smaller goals, I'm meeting them and exceeding them in the time that I have given myself. So having goals that are, yes, chocolate is always good. Chocolate is always good. Unfortunately, I don't have any, so I have to make do with other things. But yeah, rewards are a great way to, you know, to motivate yourself as well. And I have talked to Carolyn, and I don't know how many times I've talked to Carolyn, and she's probably sick of hearing me at times, but you know, if I'm struggling, you know, I'll go and say, hey, Carolyn, can I bug you for a couple minutes? And then I'm like rapid fire bouncing ideas off her, and she's going, you know, she's giving me that feedback. But it's amazing because what that little bit of time that we're spending chatting, I'm getting validation. I'm working through the kinks and working through the blockage and working through that negative energy. And so having that as well, that support system in place is super beneficial, I think, too, because it gives me a chance to not only figure out what I need to do, but it also gives me an idea of, hey, I'm not alone in this. I'm not the only one that's struggling with, you know, maybe getting this scene down right, or, you know, maybe, you know, this character, you know, they're driving me nuts. I don't know what to do. It really does, that feedback from someone else is very beneficial. And I think that is a really good way to help balance the emotional and creativity bucket, Phil, that we need to rely on. So for me personally, at least, having that rewards, and then, you know, if I do get truly stuck, I can go to part of my support, you know, group, which is Carolyn, Randy, you know, and say, hey, you know, have you got a few minutes? Can we brainstorm? Can I ask you these questions? And it really does help. Thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. I try not to be a bug. And it's a two-way street, you know. I think, you know, that within the group, I think what we're going to do is create an accountability thread, maybe, and then we can kind of post our goals and our wins and our losses and support each other. And I think that's going to be really beneficial for everyone in the group too, because, you know, it just kind of gives us all a sense of we're in this together. We're not struggling alone, because writing is, it can be very isolating, especially if the people that are around you aren't writers or aren't familiar with the craft, or, you know, they're sitting there going, well, why aren't you finished yet? Because, you know, I mean, who's gotten that question asked by friends and family? Everybody, right?
I'm like, why don't you do this then?
Exactly. So I think that's a huge win if you can get that. So, you know, I hope that everyone has gotten a lot of ideas, and by all means, if you guys have some more ideas or thoughts on how to be, you know, create a balance between the writing and the non-writing and that sort of thing, I do hope that you will feel free to share them. Cutting yourself off for that one day, even 30 minutes, even going for a 10-minute walk is incredibly beneficial. Animals are wonderful. You know, I live on the prairie, so out here it's an ocean of grain or canola or whatever. But I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what you can do in a very short period of time. Would anyone be interested in the spreadsheet that I created that has the days and times and that sort of thing? If you guys are, I will definitely share it. I will put it into the group for everyone so that they can make a copy for themselves.
I would love to see that. I'm a big spreadsheet fan as well, so I would love to have a copy of that. If you're willing to share, I'm all
yeah,
over it.
Yeah, totally.
I'm an accountant by the light of day, and so spreadsheets are my life.
I'm also a beanie.
I love that, by the light of day. That is a fantastic way to say that.
My Facebook says I'm an accountant by the light of day and an author by the dark of night.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Have my alter egos.
Yes.
Sounds like Batman.
Yes.
Exactly. Carolyn has, and I know Carolyn's schedule is as crazy as mine, if not even crazier. Literally, crazy. She has usually sets herself these awesome goals of doing 2K in a day, 3K, 10K in a day, and usually she nails it. She usually hits it out of the park. Carolyn, I am going to totally throw you under the bus and ask you, can you give us a little glimpse into your process, how you manage to do everything that you do in a day while still staying sane?
Who said anything about staying sane? I homeschool, and for the most part, my children are self-guided. I have a 14-year-old ready to go to college, and by the time his peers graduate from high school, I hope that he graduates with at least an associate's as well. And I have a little 10-year-old girl who wants to be an astronaut. So we've been working on, well, it helps that one of my writing friends, her son, just got into the Space Force. I know he's not gonna go space or anything, but they give us lots of information and share pictures. So we're kind of fans and we follow them closely. And then one of my critique friends in another group, her son wants to build rockets. So she's been giving me all of his syllabus and everything. So I've been using that for my daughter as well. So they're pretty much self-guided. I am a high-tech person. I love technology and I love resources. So we have an iPad Pro and we have a Mac and we have a gaming laptop. So that you want to get you don't want just RAM pimped out, you want your ROM pimped out, because I am a tab whore, and amping up that ROM allows me to have more than 12 tabs open without crashing the system. I love my programs, and they simplify. This is what helps keep me sane, because I am a cover artist. I've always been an abstract artist who's had work put in. I've won awards my whole life for artwork. So I've been training. I'm taking courses from Neostock, Nuclei, Domestika. I don't know how to pronounce that. For digital art, I'm in Paintable, studying under David and taking his master classes when they're free. I am taking Laura's workshops. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew the basics. Nope. She's a developmental editor and has so much wisdom oozing from her pores. And it's just like, soak that sucker up. I'm so not even close to getting caught up with the classes from Inkers Con. But my goal is, Patricia and I are in one of my friends' accountability groups. Her name is Jenny Rabe. She's a sweet romance writer. She follows the Writing Gals. She has amazing, oh my gosh, she got me hooked up with Victorine and Michelle and Jewel, and Jewel's a mayor out in Utah, and she has written a book, Rapid Release. And these are people that I've been hooked up with and I'm greatly blessed to be around. And like, super glad that Michael and CT and Hermes started the Writing Guys. I mean, guys, there's so many amazing resources. But back to programs real quick. I use Vellum on the Mac. Now Atticus is coming out. I got the beta version. Atticus is like Vellum, except it's going to be pimped up. Like it has way more options for everything, for headers, for content style, for fonts, for prints, and for ornaments. I mean, it is sexy. And you can use Atticus on any device, a tablet, your phone, a laptop, a Mac. And they're trying to make it half the cost of Vellum. Vellum is just for Mac users. You can rent a Mac for $1 an hour, get your book professionally formatted in 10 minutes. It is that easy. And in the Vellum group, Jody has a free ebook where she teaches you exactly how to format. So if you get that ebook, let's say you have a Mac, you get Vellum, you get that ebook, you read it, you know, it doesn't take too long to get through. She simplifies. It is glorious. You can just seriously take 10 minutes, have your book professionally formatted, whereas it will take you a day to up to 2 weeks to hire a professional, depending on how they do it, and they charge you a lot of money. Those two programs right there will pay for themselves. Vellum will pay for itself in 3 books. You plan on publishing more than 3 books, it is an investment. Pro Writing Aid. I think it was 3 years ago now, a lot of editors stopped using Grammarly and switched to Pro Writing Aid. You still need a human brain, yes. Get the manual style for your region. For Americans, it is the Chicago manual style. But Pro Writing Aid, it's so overwhelming, and I get that. Take like 2 weeks off just to study it. It teaches you to find repeats, echoes, redundancies, passive voice. And passive voice is not just the zombie thing. Passive voice is when it's heavy and it drags the pace, when it's like when people use a lot of had beens, that drags the pace, it slows it, and literally it puts readers like me to sleep, literally, because my brain goes into overdrive in processing that heavy pace and that information. So, and it also catches sticky sentences, those wordy, nasty sentences that you can pare back, even if you do purple prose. It helps you learn. And you don't have to apply all of this. You don't, but it teaches you what to look for. Hi, Lancy. Another great resource if you want to add depth. And it totally has sped up my writing process. Deep Point of View by Lisa Hall Wilson. She's got a free 5-day challenge on Facebook. She's got a $10 paid group where you get to keep handouts, which you cannot share. She's got a more in-depth course, and she's got her 5-week masterclass. I've taken it 3 times. I'm still learning nuances. It is beautiful. It is glorious. Oh my gosh, Patricia, I wish I had an example of taking filters out. Like he stomped into the room, chucked the file at the desk, just show me, take me there. So she takes you there. She teaches you how to write with immediacy, right in the moment. Kids at the table were being really honest and raw with your emotions. She teaches you and takes you there. And by learning these nuances, it has shrunk my revision process down, because now my first drafts are 3rd drafts. I am no longer writing with pen shifts. I'm no longer writing with bad punctuation. I am no longer writing, he did this, he did that, stage directions. I'm now writing more in depth. So that's greatly helped for me. And I know, I think Laura said this doesn't work for her, but for me, writing sprints. Chris Fox, he is a leading guru, along with David G. I can never pronounce his name, Patricia, the dude from Ireland. These two men, yes, they're in the indie community. They are gurus. They are masters. They know what they're talking about. You can follow them on YouTube. If you are a fantasy writer, follow Brandon Sanderson on YouTube. He's brilliant, and he teaches, I think, at a university or something. Anyway, back to sprints. Chris Fox. I love him. He has this book. Let me pull up my screen. he has this book that is 5,000 words per hour. Write faster, write smarter. You may think that is impossible. I can't write 5,000 words per hour, but you know what this is about? It's about your frame of mind. It is about training your brain that when you sit in that chair to work, something clicks and you work. The moment you start that timer, you are in the zone, and it takes time. It is a process. But once you train your brain, every time you sit for a sprint, even if you have writer's block, you will work because you've trained your brain. One of my top resources. So just lots and lots of different resources for me have helped me, and are tools that help me in this game. I also recently, thank you so much for telling me, Patricia, published a Rocket. It's gonna go to subscription. I don't like subscriptions. You can get it now for like 97 bucks and you own it. End of circle, a story. Now, when you get it, the guy who created it, he's also Kindlepreneur. You can go to kindlepreneur.com and get a whole bunch of free resources, writing, formatting, publishing, everything, every aspect from first draft to, you know, putting it out there, everything. When you buy Publisher Rocket, he gives you a link to a VIP section where it has tricks of the trade that he uses, like trigger words for books.
Yep.
You can use as keywords, trigger words for books, and you can use those in combination, and you use them in your blurb to draw people to your books to get the right audience. These are things that I didn't know. So I'm flying by the seat of my pants. So, but these resources, and usually with the accountability group on Sundays, Jenny encourages us, tell us what you accomplished last week, even if it's nothing. If nothing, did you take a break? Are you feeling better? Tell us what's going on in your life. And then, what are your plans for this week? What are your goals? So then I think, what do I want to get done with this week? Well, I need to get my website done. I've branded it. I started working on individual pages, so on and so forth. And you know, I need to get this week, I need to get 15,000 words in. That could be in either of my serials that I'm working on in Vella. That could be in one of my stories. That could be in working on an outline. I have really vivid dreams, so I have plenty of materials to work from. So I do a basic outline, and I can go in and use that outline and just start writing out the book. And if I'm in the zone, I think once I've hit 26,000 words in a day. So it's, for me, writing is my therapy. So, but when I get really stuck, I'll switch projects. Like I'll either work on Goddesses of Fate or Goddesses Blessings or Tangled Fates or Daughter of the Wind, or work on the cover for Dinge of Light. And I also schedule out, no matter what, I've got to keep learning. I've got to keep growing. I need to spend half an hour in this new resource book that I got that teaches me how to write a believable love scene. Or I need to go into the Source of Senses and study that book for half an hour, or, you know, so on and so forth. I also, I do critiques, but recently I've also been doing assessments. I've been assessing people's chapters. Is there emotional growth or character growth from the beginning of the scene, the end of the scene? And I've also been coaching somebody else on serials because we format our episodes a little differently from novels. So we have to make sure we have high impact, and we can't go too deep in that. We can't go in too much depth because we have a word count to hit. The sweet spot is 1,200 words per episode. That's how you hook readers. That's how they spend money on your serials. So there are different tricks and different parts of psychology that apply to writing serials than to writing regular novels or novellas. And then you have your genres, which have their own nuances. But by learning throughout all of these resources, you can speed up your process.
And Carolyn's really good at doing that, speeding up the process. She's also really good at driving home the points that need to be made. Like, I love Carolyn's the way that she does critiques. I love how she does them because she asks the questions and she really makes you think. And she has that positive attitude. So even if it sucks, she still has something positive to say about it. And I think the way that she does it with relying on the resources is absolutely amazing. There is nothing wrong with collecting resources. I have quite a few of the same resources that Carolyn does. I'm learning cover design. I'm learning marketing for cover design. I'm learning all of that. And I've been doing cover designs for over a year now. I've got some regular clients, and I'm getting good at certain genres. Certain genres I still need to learn a little bit more on. But so keeping abreast, learning is probably a really good way to also create a way to fill that creative bucket, because when you're learning, you're releasing, your brain is absorbing stuff, and you're really trying, it's really becomes a way of engaging with your senses as well, because you're putting yourself out there, you're absorbing, you become a sponge. Having a really good sleep cycle is also very important, because as human beings, short-term memory, we tend to absorb more for our short-term memory when we sleep, because that's when our brain can process everything, because it's not focused on all of the stimulus that's around us. So having a really good sleep cycle is also important to making sure that you're keeping that emotional and creative balance in your life and in your writing. Yeah, and so, sorry, the cat has decided that she wants to lay on my mouse. And sometimes that's just it, when you start thinking about it, oftentimes, you start convincing yourself it's not worth it. It's too much, it's overwhelming. It's, you feed into that negativity, that negative energy, and it actually acts as a way of blocking your creativity and your emotional growth when it comes to writing. Well, Carolyn, you and I are in the same boat. Literally, both of us, our sleep cycle, and I mean, oh my God, girl, hats off to you, because honestly, I couldn't do it all nighter and then stay up the next day. But my kids are my son's grown, he's 19, so I don't really stay up. If he's sick, but yeah, I think sleep is important, having a healthy balance, with your intake of food. Exercise is really good, taking time for yourself. I have a goal right now, that with Chains of Rome, I want to see it get up past the 48 ranking of 48 in the bestseller list. I want to see it get up to 30, and when it hits 30, I'm actually going to go and get my nails done. Yeah, and that's a big thing. I'm going to put out some feelers and see if I can actually get someone who is really good at creating that positivity and that healthy frame of mind when it comes to being an entrepreneur, and seeing if they might be willing to come in and give us a little bit of a talk on a round table. Yeah, and I don't think you were being pushy about finding solutions. All right, no problem, Bobby. Have a good night. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah, you don't want band-aids. Band-aids are really bad. So I'm gonna leave. Oh yes, so the course book about Deep Point of View is Lisa Hall Wilson's. Her Facebook group is Going Deeper with Emotions. Both Carolyn and I have taken classes of hers. I will actually post a link to her courses and stuff in the group for you, Destiny, so you can check it out. And her book is called Method Acting for Writing. Yes, I love her courses. I really wish that the webinar that I attended a couple of weekends ago with hers had been recorded and available for replay. It was phenomenal. And I was just, yes, we'll do a Google Doc. I will start a Google Doc with resources and everything. And I will share the link for everyone in the group so that you guys can access it, and we can build on it for sure. Sorry, I have a cat that's taking over my desk. Go ahead, Jordan.
I said, really not much. I'm just trying to keep up and adding stuff to my cart as you guys go. I was like, let me just go ahead and add to my cart now.
Okay.
Lisa's a sweetheart, and Stephanie will come in. Stephanie's a professional editor. She's different from Laura. But Stephanie understands deep point of view, whereas Lara doesn't really do deep point of view. She actually encourages sequence issues and dialogue tags, which are shallow, and that's fine. That's fine unless you want deep point of view. But Stephanie has her own group where she gives editing tips for free, and they are glorious. They are. If I had known those things when I first started writing, I would not have made so many mistakes. The reason why I'm so OCD on certain things are because those are things that I did wrong for years. And people told me, you're wrong, you suck, your writing sucks. Nobody ever said, hey, this is how you're writing. This is the correct way. Let me show you an example. When people started showing me that and they didn't tear me down, that was when I started learning. That was when my I've always had a passion for storytelling. That's when my passion for writing really just took off. I actually stopped writing for a few years thanks to one of my friend's husbands who just was toxic. And I don't think he was trying to be toxic. He was just really toxic and tore me down. And he didn't know how to help me. But once you find your tribe, man, it just makes all the difference in the world. So yeah, it is overwhelming, but one thing at a time, one step at a time. And you don't have to apply deep point of view to everything. You can just apply it to certain scenes. And oh my gosh, so I recently read an author who does telling and some show and tell, and she does it with such panache. It is magnifique. It is amazing. It is beautiful. It's gorgeous. I hate shallow telling. He said this, she said that, he did this, he did that. I actually critique someone's work who writes like that, and it drives me up the wall because like a lot of what she says, what one of the characters said is really, really rude and comes, oh my gosh, yeah, no, I won't get into that. But if she were just to add just a smidge depth, it could change the whole attitude, including the dialogue. Oh, dialogue, how to write dazzling dialogue. That is a must. It is brilliant because you learn dialogue isn't just about sounding natural. Dialogue should bring out that character's personality and move the story forward. It's not just about talking or, hey, I want this scene to be casual. Yes, it can be casual, but is this character funny? You could really drive up the humor just with doing the right phrasing in your dialogue. So how to write dazzling dialogue is an absolute must. Fabulous resource. I will put that on the list. I'll put links to all of these books, Patricia.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yes,
Fantastic.
I am new to this. Yes, maybe you could teach me because I am like so new to this. All I know is I see boring dialogue and I'm like, oh, come on now. I had no idea how important it was.
Yeah, well, and you know, I think part of that is perception too. I recently had a conversation, speaking of dialogue and dialogue tags. I recently had a conversation with someone who had read a snippet, had beta read for me a bit of a chapter, and she was trying to tell me that I was exhausting my readers because I don't use dialogue tags. I do deep point of view. To me, dialogue tags they're slow, they're chunky,
Redundant.
Yes. How many times can you say said in a page before it becomes, and yes, as readers, when we come across said, we tend to skip over it. Yes, we do. But as a reader, when I'm stumbling over dialogue tags, I struggle finishing the book. And I don't like not finishing the book, but I struggle with it. So I don't write it. And one of the things that she had said was, instead of me telling everyone, showing everyone these action beats that I use, whether it's, Cooper pulled back the chair from the kid, the Cooper grabbed the back of the chair and the legs screeched across the linoleum floor before he plunked his butt into it. To me, sounds way better than Cooper said, have a seat at the table, pulled up the chair and sat down. To me, it's flat. There's no pizzazz.
In your example, in your first example, you're not just doing a body beat, you're showing his emotional frame of mind.
Yeah.
You're also giving a key clue to his personality in how he reacts in that particular situation.
Yeah.
So by doing, and it's not just a body beat, you have an emotional, it's not just an action beat, you have a body beat in there. It's more emotional the way you put it. So you're creating a visceral experience instead of just stating he sat in the seat.
Yeah.
And in the second example, sequence, because you don't know what he says before he says it.
Yes, I know. I'm
And
thinking on the fly.
I know people say you gloss over said, but when you use it every single time and it's on one page 6 times, that is a repeat that jumps out. You can use said. There's nothing wrong with using said. Just don't overdo it.
I always look for other words like explain, something else where I'm like, okay, I've said it too many times.
But
Well, you don't even have to say explain. You're like, this is like, you put the stack of papers in the blue folder, and the quotation marks. Dang it, did she have to explain it every single time? Was he a moron? Or, oh, he's testing her. Oh, she could get back at him. What could she do? What could she do? Go into his office and mess everything up and change the lock on his drawer. You could take it there. You can like go emotionally instead of saying she just explained, say, does she have to explain? Just amp that sucker up. And then you get to see she's mad,
Yeah,
So just like take it up a notch. That's what Lisa teaches. That's why I love Lisa. But no, when I read stories that have a lot of dialogue tags, I prefer exactly what you do. I prefer it mixed up because even certain dialogue tags can give you a hint toward their emotion and frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with dialogue tags is they're mostly redundant. Like if you have a question, he asked, well, yeah, he asked, look, it's a question. Sorry, my little wrench.
Sorry, we both Carolyn and I, outside of her serials, we both write deep point of view. So for us, it's natural. It's like,
That's what I'm attempting with mine a little bit, just because I feel like mine goes how the characters are. It's kind of like some parts in their head and then some of their dialogue, and I want to kind of play off of that.
yeah,
Yes, that's what I call frame of mind. That's when you use free indirect speech, which is their internal thoughts, but you don't have to be like, I thought this, I thought that, or I wonder,
No.
to show it. So what is that boy thinking? That outfit does not, and those shoes, he's in the wrong part of the city for wearing, does he want to get shot? It's so like that's all internal thoughts. It's all part of the frame of mind. And frame of mind is even how you describe the clothing. Are like, that shirt is nice and tight over those sleek pecs. Just by adding in descriptive words.
mm-hmm.
Totally. Yes, I'm right there with you. Totally awesome.
Yeah, it's she looked at the snakeskin boots he was wearing and snickered. Those wouldn't last a week. Those wouldn't last a day, an hour in the barn. So we already know she knows he's a wannabe cowboy. He's an 8-second cowboy. His thing is rodeo. That's it, kind of thing. He dresses the part, but he's not real. So And I think this, it's so unique, and it's so interesting, the different ways that we write, and I don't think, regardless of whether you write shallow or whether you write deep point of view, I think if the writing is solid and it's engaging, and it's done properly, then it's an awesome story. It's when it's not, then it can kind of be a drag. I recently read a book, and it was painful to finish. I will be honest with you, because it was just tense shifts, pacing was off. The story itself hadn't been researched. There was no research done on it for that specific thing, and so it really threw
We're
me
talking
off.
about the book that I recently reviewed.
Yes.
Oh goodness. So Laura Z's workshops are helping me see the bigger picture, to see the broad strokes, and that was something I also had a experience, can't really talk about. But I've learned how to do assessments, and from taking that experience, we can tell, beginning to end of scene, character growth, emotional growth. Does it stay in the character's point of view? Is there a hook at the beginning? How is the dialogue? Does this make me want to continue reading? Is there a cliffhanger at the end? If so, which type? Things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And deep point of view, if you're not familiar with it, and I think I honestly think, Carolyn, we should completely do a roundtable that is strictly on deep point of view, how to do it, what we've learned. I will reach out to Lisa Hall Wilson, see if she would be willing to come in and give us a little bit of a talk, because here's the thing. I've gotten feedback on a project. Carolyn knows the project very well, and basically the reader had said that it was full of head hopping, and I didn't build my worlds enough, and that it was there was orphan sentences and this sort of thing. But when you read it as a deep point of view, and you're familiar enough with deep point of view, when you read it, you understand, you know what that character knows. So if that character doesn't know who is the man 3 blocks down the road, then you're not going to know. You cannot know everything, right? And I think that's another aspect of deep point of view, because that people maybe overlook a little bit, because I think from what I understand and from what I've learned and from how how it's kind of sunk into my brain, when you're writing, the character that you are, whose point of view you are in, they're taking you along for the ride on their story. So if they don't know something, the reader can't know that either, because then it doesn't make any sense. There's no logical way for a character to know, like, for example, I've got one right now. So Rebel wouldn't know anything about Cooper's his relationships before he met him, because he's not Cooper, right? He doesn't know anything about the past. He only knows what Cooper is going to tell him, right? What Cooper is going to share with him. So if I'm writing and I'm in Rebel's point of view, and I'm sitting there and going off about Cooper's high school boyfriend, how does that character know that person? Unless Cooper has told him, he's not going to know. So that's another aspect when you're working in deep point of view, because and Carolyn said it brilliantly the other day, when you're writing in outside of deep point of view, you're putting the reader into the seats at the theater, so that they're watching the story on the big screen. When you do deep point of view, they're no longer watching the movie. They are right there with the character. They're experiencing, the battle scenes and the fights and the laughter and all these other things that are going on with the with that character. And so to me, that's a huge thing. So yeah, I will see if we can get Lisa Hall or maybe even Stephanie to come in and talk to us about the point of view. I think that would be really beneficial for the group, because I think it would really expand everyone's knowledge, because there are some nuances that I'm still learning, still playing around with. Carolyn's taken her master class 3 times, I think 4 times, something like that.
Sounds
That's 3
like it.
times. Sorry.
So, well, Carolyn does know a little bit more. Well, she knows quite a bit more than I do, but yeah, I think that would be really beneficial. And it's, that's the point of the group. I want to make sure that we're putting forth resources and stuff that everybody can use, everybody can glean something from. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us this evening, Destiny. It was so great to see you.
Yep.
Are
Pleasure
there
to meet
any
you.
resources you need?
Yes, anything you need?
Big one is fight scenes. I feel like I suck at them, and my book has a lot of fighting in it.
Okay, what type of fight?
Mine
What
are
type of
maybe-
genre do you write?
So this book is fantasy, like kind of epic fantasy, kind of like The Hobbit and like Narnia, those type of epics
Mhm.
with magic system. So
Okay.
most of my fights are like that.
So are you using like paladins, wizards, warlocks, witches, nymphs, things like that?
Yes, like my main character, he's not called a wizard, but he basically has the powers of a wizard. And everyone has magic per se, a level of magic.
Which
Mhm.
type of
And-
magic?
More so of like, what's a good comparison magic?
There are magic wielders who have to use potions and
Mhm.
and chants and stuff, and then there are people that are born
Good.
magic, and then there are people that steal magic and it's part of them. Other kinds were to use ley lines to get from, depending on your fantasy. Patricia, can I in the group like make suggestions to specific other groups, because depending on the character, their class, their skills, their race, their fighting style is going to be dependent on those variables.
Yes,
And they're the weapon of choice.
Yeah.
And
by all means.
perfect. Destiny, I have 2 groups I want to suggest to you, and I'll put those in there. I write across genres. I write soft sci-fi, sci-fi fantasy. I write epic fantasy, high fantasy, paranormal, romance. I write a bunch of different genres.
That's
And fight scenes are one of my pet peeves for people to get wrong. If you're in the moment, you're being attacked, are you going to start thinking about what you had for breakfast or what your plans are for the week? I mean, if you're an assassin and you're like, I'll be done with him in a moment, and his body is just moving fluidly, what am I going to have for lunch? That makes sense for an elf's personality if he's assassin, because like he's already that blade, he's just playing around, and then he just slits his throat, and he's then is like, like, okay, I don't normally cuss, but I do when in character, like, damn, his blood is black. That is going to stain. Just kind of nonchalant. So it depends on the personality and their
That's true.
background.
See, and I write dark historical and paranormal, but my paranormal is more medieval era type weaponry and battles, and my dark historical is, well, it depends on where I'm at, right? This last one was ancient Rome, so it was gladiators.
Oh.
How did they fight? Those sorts of things. Randy's a good one. She's a good one to ask questions as well, because she's really good. at-
She's awesome. Sorry.
Yes. No. Yeah. So yeah, if there's, if you have questions, or you have, you're in need of a resource, post it in the group, because that's the whole thing that we want to make sure that everyone is getting something out of the group. Everyone is getting as much out of the group as they possibly can, because that's what it was created for. It was created for writers who are serious about building a successful career and being successful and making money at this. And, you know, some of us are just a little bit more crazy than others, but.
And rightly so, because like we need that craziness. Like Randy helped me with the psycho in one of my books. It was brilliant.
I love Randy
I went
because
off of her.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Well, she helped me with the Solaria Marcus's battle scenes because we're trying to figure it. That was funny. So yeah, post away in the group. It is open to everyone to post, to engage in conversation, start a conversation, ask questions. Feel free to do whatever you need to do, whether it's resources for the craft, whether it's marketing resources, whether it's questions about copyright, trademarking, although no one really knows much about trademarking. Carolyn knows a little bit, but I'm not sure if it varies from state to state.
Tracy's my guru for all that.
Okay. I did invite her to the group. She hasn't accepted the invitation yet, so
I don't think she will. She's actually paring down groups. I believe Tracy caught COVID the first way around, and it pounded her, man. It like she is right now. She's working on a couple of projects to publish, and she's working on covers, and she's working a lot on DAS renders.
Okay.
And her son is in the Space Force.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
awesome. So yeah, so you know, like I said, if we don't know, you know, if someone in the group doesn't know, I'm sure that we can find a resource or point you in the direction of something that will benefit you. So that it, you know, it does answer the questions. So yeah, that's the whole point of
For fighting scenes though, well, there maybe, I know you don't write lit RPG, but a lot of them are D&D gamers, and in lit RPG, you have to have your fight scenes down. They have to be solid. They're one group I'm definitely going to suggest. Lit RPG.
Okay.
It's just called Lit RPG.
LIT RPG. They are Ready Player One. Have you seen Ready Player One?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're stories where the character knows they're stuck in a game or they mostly play in a game. That's what lit RPG is, role-playing games and literature. And then there's game lit, which is a little different, and I still don't understand that. But I think the guy who actually coined the term is one of the authors in there, and they're like so helpful. They will help you with the writing scenes, like your fighting. Oh my gosh, these people are amazing.
It's wonderful to know, because I've written, just looking at my outlines, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have like 3 other fight scenes, and like I feel like I'm sucking already at the 2 I just written.
Well, Destiny, are you? Did you look into doing the critique? We're starting up some critiques. Check it out. Go into the folder, create a folder for yourself. You can post in there and ask for feedback on your fight scenes.
And you can be specific. Say, I'm looking for this. I don't want this.
Yes, be specific.
Is that critique like that post I need to go ahead and look for?
I will find the post and I will tag you in it. I'll tag you in a comment.
Okay. So that'll be fine, just to kind of get critique on that, because at first I thought I was gonna do critiques after everything was finished. I was like, might as well just kind of piece them together, because it seems like it's not gonna be finished anytime soon right now.
Please remember, they're only our opinions. You don't have to take them. You can just consider them and be like, okay, that doesn't work. Ignore. You know, you're God. You know your story better than anyone else.
exactly.
But that's true. At least to have someone have eyes on it and say, like, is this okay? Did I go too dark? Did I need to come back to the light?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
no,
are you writing a dark fantasy?
No, but there is a dark, a slight dark element. It's multiple POVs, and there's one particular character where it mentions it's suicide ideation for this particular character in one chapter.
Mhm.
And so again, it goes down that spiral. So I kind of take you down that spiral, him going down until that point.
yep.
Why would that be too dark? To take your audience there, like in Frozen. Okay, I love Disney. Frozen 2 with Anna. Oh my gosh, they went there.
Okay, that's true. I didn't think about that like that.
So like, take us there, make us feel that soul crushing moment where we're just in tears and our chests are so tight we can hardly breathe, and we're just like in the abyss with them. Like, how do we get out of this? And then you're gonna pull them out, and then we're gonna be like, oh my god.
Yep.
That's my biggest thing for this particular book, because it starts off with both my character, my MC, and like his foil. They're all kind of they relatively stay on that kind of a darkish path until the MC goes kind of in the higher route, and the kind of his foil of the other character, it kind of has more of a negative arc in the main character. So I'm just really trying to balance that where it's not like, I'm like, Jesus, it's depressing the whole time.
I posted into the critiques, and see, because you may find that you get some feedback and it may validate what you're doing. It may give you some direction to go in. And don't be
And also keep in mind, Laura Z. Sorry.
No.
Just
Yes.
Laura Z is a developmental editor. I take her advice over most other people, because, well, she's an editor. I agree. I watch editors like a hawk. I work with a couple of editors. I watch editors like a hawk because a lot of them, I'm like, what are you talking? That's not in the CMO. What are you talking about? That's not right. And that's a stylistic choice. And you're saying it's this other thing. Laura Z, she knows what she's talking about. I trust her. She's awesome. She's also in the group. So her opinion holds a lot of weight to me. Just something to think about. So when you post in the group, understand you've got people in there who know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yeah, we do. We have an amazing group, a very diverse group. So yeah, totally. Don't be shy. We have a no bullying policy too. So if you're concerned someone's just gonna be brutal, don't be shy about that or anything like that, because we have a zero tolerance for any of that, and that's right in the rules. It's not, I'll have to add it, but I think it is. It's and you know what? You can always write down the question. Laura is going to be with us on the 22nd. She's coming to do a talk as an editor. She was very generous in donating some time to us that evening. So post it for critiques, and if it doesn't, if you still have questions, you can always, ask her on that evening.
Awesome. And I'll go and look for that post and go ahead and just kind of, when are critiques again? Is that every on the weekend or?
What we're going to do is we're just going to put up a post. We're going to put up our chapters, and then what will happen is every third Wednesday, we're going to get together to do a live discussion. So if you post it today, the 15th would be the first critique discussion meeting.
Is it the same time as kind of like this meeting, like the round table?
At the same time, yeah.
So 6 o'clock on my end?
Yeah, 6 to 8. They're only supposed to be an hour, but we seem to be going for 2 hours. So that's what we're going to shoot for, is 2 hours once a week.
Got it. Thanks so much, ladies.
Very welcome. Very, very welcome. Thanks for coming out. It's so great to see your face, and I hope that tonight was gave you some good some good information, and give you some tips and stuff that you can use to when you get the I just don't know if this is good enough. You got this. You got this.
Nope, it helps me out to go back to my board and actually figure and get everything together
Yep.
for us, like what I plan to do.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, thanks, Destiny. We will hopefully see you next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Awesome.
Night.
Good night. Bye-bye.